I'm Brandon Miller, and you are listening to Coach. This weekly series dives deep into the world of CliftonStrengths and how they impact your daily life. Hear from certified strengths coaches on the ins and outs, quirks, and characteristics of all 34 strengths and 4 domains and how they play out in real life. Let's get started. Welcome back to this next episode of the Strengths Whisperer, Coach to Coach. Today I have Kathy Kersten with me, coming all the way from the Texas Hill Country. Kathy, welcome.
Hi, Brandon. It's so good to see you.
You as well. I'm excited today to talk about one of my all-time favorite strengths. We're going to talk about strategic. And before we do, I want listeners to know that you can find Kathy at her podcast, Obey Your Strengths. I assume anywhere where there's podcasts open, they can find you there. Kathy, is that right?
You got it.
And then Kersten Consulting, you can find Kathy at KERSTEN, KathyKersten.com. Kathy, tell us what you're doing, what you're up to.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me, Brandon, on the Coach to Coach. I am a Strengths Finder coach, and I work with teams. So I'm a team maximizer. I've been doing this work independently since 2012.
That is quite the journey there. And I know personally what that's like being on the independent side of life and being there. You made a conscious decision, though, because you went from a place where strengths were a part of culture. And then you said, okay, I'm going to go do this for other people now. Is that right?
That's right. I would like to say my strategic strength had something to do with it, but it didn't really at the time. I worked internally for a startup that IPO'd and went through accelerated growth, a technology company in San Antonio, Texas called Rackspace Hosting. They were a strength-based organization. I happened to be an internal strengths coach working with employees all around the employee life cycle. And I left in 2012 really to focus on my family. I had had 2 children while at Rackspace, and I was looking for a little different. I was wanting to get off the startup train and have some more time. I'm a maximizer as well. I have strategic and maximizer in my top 5. And I wanted to be a maximizer mom. So I was going to maximize that childhood time with my kiddos. And little did I know that I'd have the opportunity to do some side coaching with organizations. And so that's the genesis of this consulting gig. Had no idea that it would eventually become a full-time plus job, I'm very blessed to still be doing it today.
Very good. And Kathy, tell us a little bit about strategic. So, you could have picked a lot of ways to take your business. Sounds like coming from a company that was committed to be a strengths-based organization made a lot of sense to build on that in your independent space. And so here you are, you're someone with high strategic strength. And this is one that sometimes people hear the term and they start to assume what it means. And so I'd love for you to take us through that strength, how you resonate with it, how it shows up.
Yeah. Strategic has been a part of my life since childhood. My parents recognized it in me. I didn't have a name for it until I took the strengths assessment. I didn't know that I was anything, that I had these patterns of possibility thinking. I didn't see that I asked a lot of what if questions. Most of it was happening internally. And as I grew through life, I noticed that, maybe I do make smarter decisions than, in my small family, like my brothers. I'd say, well, what if we did this instead? And I started to see this talent coming through definitely when I got into college and my younger working years. I could see how I was drawn to building the plan of how something would be made or how we would execute a task. I enjoyed the planning process. And to this day, I love a good challenge in which I have the opportunity to think through all the different possibilities and pick the right route or pick the best route and then execute based on that vision in my head.
I love that. The patterns of possibility thinking is there's so much to unpack with just that statement, the patterns of possibility thinking. And so I've heard it said this way, that if I were to tell you today, Kathy, it can't be done. This idea that we have, it can't be done. We should just stop right here.
Challenge accepted.
What happens inside of you once you hear that?
Oh, it's going to be done. And sometimes I hit my head against a wall.
Listener, I want you to hear how easily that rolled off. It's going to be done. Even the tone of voice changed to it's going to be done. And I think for us listening, because there's something about this particular strength, there's such a depth of confidence as it's developed and understood and then owned, right? Once someone says, "Oh no, I got this," right?
Yeah. It is a creative skill at its depth. There is an agility in thinking around objects or thinking beyond the object to figure out how to get over the roadblock or the object to get the task done. Strategic does bring a lot of power and open-mindedness. Now, I'll say that there's also a downside to that, right? It takes me longer sometimes to think through things when really something can't be done. I'll waste time thinking about all the could be's, would be's, should be's about the situation and in hopes that I'll find the route to get it done. I have a hard time accepting that it can't be done. So that can be a blind spot. And so you got to be aware of that. When is it time to move on to the next thing instead of circling around the problem too much?
Yeah, that's good. Because I think with this particular strength, there's such a level of intuition to it, right? It's, I don't know, now I know. And it's because as the information comes, it's almost that the connections start to occur in their own way. And so what you described, go up over it, go around it, go through it, find that path. And I think it's fair to say what you just offered is tough to admit defeat for a strategic.
Certainly. And, I think that everyone's strategic who has this as a dominant talent looks a little differently based on the other 4 strengths in their top 5, or if you're looking at the top 10, the other 9 strengths surrounding that strategic. And so I've got quite a bit of drive from my maximizer, and I've got a lot of things in the from the influencing domain in my 6 through 10. And so I really have a strong desire to do and to get people to follow along. And so it is really hard to sort of reorient myself around a possibility that I don't like. And so, this takes self-awareness.
That's right. That's right. Do you find with your strategic that when you've made the plan, so it's decided we're going this direction, plan starts to get shaky, not working, that you're quick with contingencies, that you're quick to have, okay, let's go to route B, plan CA, dosh dat 5, right? Like it's the contingency planning that seems to mark this particular strength.
Yes. And those mid-course corrections really do re-energize me. I don't have a lot of achiever or executing strengths. And so it gives my brain something else to think about. So I enjoy, we've stumbled upon something we didn't see coming. And now we get to do the process all over again. What are the new possibilities now that we know what we know? And how can we plan around them in the future? I love that gives me a buzz. I love thinking through something and talking it out with peers or colleagues and deciding, okay, now that we know this, let's do this now. And maybe that's coming from my maximizer. And strategic, thinking, how can we even make it better? So yeah, I love the mid-course correction.
So if you're watching the video today, when Kathy said it buzz, like the smile on your face, the light in your eyes, like something clicks, right? So I'm wondering if you can give us in a moment here a little anecdote, an experience that you've had where you were able to take what you're describing and make that work. But before you do, I want to make sure all the listeners are reminded, Obey Your Strengths is Kathy's podcast. If you want to tune in, hear more about what she's doing. And Kersten Consulting at kathykersten.com. You can find her on LinkedIn. I know she puts her information and education and updates out there as well. So tell us about a little strategic story. I want to hear, something that you go, oh, this is when it clicks. Here's an example of when it happens.
Oh yeah. I mean, just recently at the end of 2023, I had one of my favorite clients give me a call and say, "Hey, we're thinking about 2024. We want to do a quarterly series for all of our teams. It's 180 people, and we want to focus on leadership, and we want the theme to be career development and owning your career development." And Brandon, my strategic mind just exploded with all the different things I could do. And I got out a whiteboard and a marker, and I just started putting my visions into writing. And then I kept sending them, well, we could do this, or we could do this, and we finally settled on a strength-based career development series, right? Because that's where my expertise is. It was delicious. The activity of having that creative freedom to get to the end goal, which was every employee of this certain customer experience department would feel empowered and like they own their role in their own career development. That was the end goal they gave me. And they gave me 4 sessions, 1 per quarter, to get them to that destination. And yeah, I mean, that's where I feel like I'm at my best. Whenever I'm feeling low or I'm lacking some energy, feeling tired in my role, because a lot of my role is a lot about woo and engaging people. And I enjoy that too. But if that's not available to me, or if I'm feeling drained from that, going and sitting with a white piece of paper and a pen and just drawing some ideas, mind mapping what could be in certain elements of my business have proven to be an energizing activity. And so when a client trusts me enough to give me the creative opportunity to do that, my strategic goes crazy. And then I got to reel it in and execute it.
The delicious part of the strategic. I want to ask you this question. So if you were coaching you, okay, so you're your coach. I want you to imagine that you're going to talk to me as though I were you. And you were going to tell you through me, here is how you get the most from this strategic strength. Here's what you need to do to get the most of it. And here's what you need to know about what it's going to need. So you were saying to me, if we were going to 10x your strategic, it's already functioning at a high level. It sounds like it's an absolute key to your success. I can hear the genius coming. But if you were going to do that, what would you say to you?
What a perfect question for someone with strategic. First and foremost, detach yourself personally from your life every once in a while and become your own consultant, because that's what strategic does best. And so I like this question because you're asking me to do that. I would encourage anyone with strategic, myself included, to take time to think through your thoughts. Give yourself the opportunity to think through upcoming tasks, upcoming weeks. The Sunday brain dump has always been very useful when I make time and I discipline myself to sit down and do it. I notice that I am able to combine activities or leverage certain opportunities in ways that I wouldn't have seen coming if I didn't take time to be strategic on my calendar, in the activities of my life, and how I'm spending my time. And so that is a very rewarding experience. Now, when you're working with others, things that you need is opportunities to talk about the possibilities you see. So when you think about how you might partner with others, or if you're interacting as a people manager or a teammate with other people, make sure that you give them the heads up that you've got strategic, and that your questions of what if or what could be do not make them feel like you're criticizing them, their ideas or their plans, yet you're trying to strengthen them and add your own unique perspective and really garner some understanding of how they got to where they're going. On the flip side of that, giving them a peek into your thought process is extremely helpful, because what I have found with myself and others, man, I can leave people in the dust in my thinking, because I will get from point A to point B so quickly that I might leave out key details that people are going, wait, how did you get there on that Kathy. And so it's good to think about how I can articulate the thinking process and let them know all the things that I've thought about and the ideas that I've culled to make my final decision on which route to take. And so, there's a few ideas.
That's great. I think the term take time to think through your thoughts was really important, because the key piece that I heard come through is that when working with others, the strategic mind goes fast and it can quickly, collect and cull thoughts at a pace. And so it'll go from A to D, and people are left wondering when they work with you, hold on, there's a straight line through B and C. What did you do? You just skipped it. And so sometimes that I hear you saying you have to signpost for them. You have to help them understand, well, here's how that worked. Here's the way that operated. And have you found, now as we think about you with others or others with you, how do you help others understand, here's my process, here's how my strategic works, here's what you're going to experience? Because obviously people who share this gift, share this intuition, right? This ability to intuit into things may not always connect, may not always understand it, which is the case of many of the strengths, but this one in particular, because when it's called strategic, people will think strategy. It's strategy. And there's a whole domain called strategic thinking. So this becomes like the poster for strategic thinking. And yet it's the one that probably is, it's very interesting. It's nuanced to a way that strategic was a good way to describe it, but it was almost like, well, how do we call it this way people think? We'll just slap strategic on it. It almost was, it's a broad enough term. It'll gather all these thoughts about how this thing works, and we'll just call it strategic. Not confusing at all, being in the strategic thinking domain. So when people are working with Kathy, what do they need to know? And this could be for team members in the past, clients in the present, your children, your husband, how people, work best with you.
Well, I think that those who are closest to me see it happening often when I overthink something. And that's a little bit of that basement or hindering level of that strength, or hindering side of that strength, where I'm always thinking through and wanting to and willing to tinker with something to get the optimized outcome or the best outcome. And so that can be something that's a blessing and a burden. And I have to be self-aware when I'm knowing that I'm either fascinating someone with that or frustrating them with that. For those folks who are maybe clients or being coached by me, I make it pretty clear when I feel myself moving into that strategic mode of, let's talk about possibilities. And I love talking about all these ideas, even the bad ones, because we will figure it out. And I know that might sound a little bit like ideation, but I just don't have a better word for it than ideas or possibilities, because I love thinking about all the what ifs. And one thing that I found in the corporate world, Brandon, I had a hard time buying into plans of my leadership if it didn't match up with the way I would do something. And maybe that comes from my belief in my also top 5, but I had to talk it through. And so a quote that I share often is, if you don't want me to battle the plan, make me a part of the plan for battle.
You have to say that one more time. Can you say that one more time? Everyone listen to this, because this could be the strategic's battle cry right here. Go ahead.
Exactly. If you don't want me to battle the plan, make me a part of the plan for battle. And so what that means is I wanted opportunities to challenge the ideas. I wanted opportunity to be in the room when the plan was being made. Not of all plans, not of the entire corporation, but the things that affected me and the way I spent my time and my priorities. I wanted to be able to challenge those with my supervisors and leaders. And when I did, I would have the opportunity to see their thinking behind it, to understand their thinking behind it. And then eventually I could buy into it. But it's really difficult to buy into it if you're not in that room for making the plan for battle. So that's also awareness thing for me. And it's also why probably people like us, Brandon, who have strategic, usually are drawn to leadership positions. We like the activity of thinking through how to achieve something. So
We'd like to be in the room. the room where it happens, right?
That's right.
Well, Kathy, in just a moment, the listeners are going to hear a word from our sponsor, and they're going to have an opportunity to download How to Be a Good Team Member to Me. And in here are it's a well-known inventory of strengths for some of you out there who are coaches, the contributions and needs. It does include on the back end, the best of me. Many of us enjoy that activity. Great for working with teams in lots of context. And so just as we wrap up today, I'm gonna recite some of these needs to you that I heard come through. So permission to ask what if or explore possibilities. That sounded like it came through pretty strong. Would that be right?
Yeah.
How about to know the obstacles, blocks, and barriers that we think are in front of us?
Mm-hmm.
I love what you said earlier when I said, all right, Kathy, it can't be done. And the first thing, I mean, you didn't even pause. You said challenge accepted. Because I think it's almost like, all right, tell me what do we think is the problem? I want to know. Cause this is like brain candy. It's like, oh, there's a problem no one can solve. Yay.
Makes me happy.
Yeah. Here's a big one. Opportunity to take risk. Do you find with yours that you need room there? You need room to fail, because one of the contributions of strategic is you recover quickly from setbacks. Would that be accurate for you?
Yes, sir.
Good. All right. So listeners, contributions and needs are found in this How to Be a Good Teammate to Me. In just a moment, you're going to hear a word from our sponsor and have a chance to download that. Kathy, thank you so much for joining us today and taking some time to talk about strategic. You brought such a wealth of information to our listeners. Could you tell everyone now where to find you?
Oh, thank you, Brandon, for inviting me to be part of this series. I'd love to connect with anyone on LinkedIn, as well as KathyKersten.com or ObeyYourStrengths.com. And if you're interested in hearing more stories of strength-based development with my clients, you can check out my podcast, Obey Your Strengths with Kathy Kersten.
Thank you for tuning in to the Strengths Whisperer Coach to Coach. Please feel free to reach out to Brandon to partner with 34 Strong for collaboration opportunities to serve your employees or clients together. If you are a strengths coach, lead a strengths-based team, or are a fan of strength, we invite you to receive our complimentary resource, How to Be a Good Teammate to Me, Understanding My Contributions and Needs. Email Brandon_Miller at 34strong.com to connect, and he will gladly share this resource that will continue to unlock the power of strength.